Good evening. Time for a very special, and especially because I haven't done one in quite a while, edition of State Revolt. We're here because this topic is incredibly important. We're going to talk about the upcoming arena vote, which is 1 week from tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm with Steve Hunt today, who is not only an expert in that entire area, also a major thorn in the side of David Holt and some other people who deserve to have thorns in their sides. So stay with us, and we're going to talk today about the real truth behind the arena vote. This is like fix the jail. When they said fix the jail, they weren't even talking about fixing the jail, they were talking about tearing down the jail. So the same type of weird propaganda is happening with this one. And I'll start really quickly with just letting people know one thing. So David Holt, when he came out and pitched this, the first thing he said was that maps is the greatest thing that has ever happened to Oklahoma City. I can't say that I would necessarily agree with that, but I would say that 65% of the money went to good causes. Yeah. Maybe a third of it was graft to billionaires and all of that.
Yeah, the first one was pretty good.
The first one was pretty good. The one for education was pretty good. The one you dubbed Maps for Millionaires was not quite as good.
No.
But overall, people can see the positive impact of maps. And for whatever reason, he hyped that in his last speech for about 2 minutes, and then he dropped this one-liner in between that and his hype for the arena, and he just stopped and said, this is not maps. And that's the one truthful thing he actually said. The arena is not maps. The arena will replace maps. There will be no more maps for at least the next decade. There will be no Maps 5 for, I think, about another 12 years at least. So what we're doing is we're taking money that we are normally spreading out to some degree to the entire city. Sidewalks, infrastructure, parks, we've just done all of these things, and we've helped build the city up in a lot of ways. We've redone the plaza, we even redid the neighborhood, 39th Street District, redid 23rd Street, redid
Britain District's coming.
Yeah, exactly. So the money is getting out there, and it's helping all of us across the city. But now we're getting ready to completely kill that and bring it to a standstill, because that tax money, that sales tax money, is going to be replaced by sales tax money that all goes into the pocket of the billionaires who own the OKC Thunder. So let's just get that out of the way first. If you love maps, and if Holt loves maps, I want to know, if he loves it so much, why does he want to kill it? And that's what's happening here. So.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating, nuanced issue. Last time we were here, I think I had my Chomsky shirt on that said "Question Everything," and I've been thinking a lot about something he said. I got to know him back in October of 2001. I was at MIT, and
Which is phenomenal.
When Holt was on the east side working as a paid supervisor for convicted pedophile Dennis Hassert, talking about who we should bomb. That's just something we need to think about. But there's just so much to this. Think about the fact that you talk about fix the jail. It's important to talk about it because those are the same people that are doing this. The founder of CJAC, Clay Bennett, the first person he went to was Roy Williams at the chamber to get that going. And it's the deadliest jail in America. And to think that that's not a central issue of analyzing whether or not this is a good idea. The next thing is that this is obviously the worst deal in the history of these bad deals. All of these publicly subsidized arenas are a bad deal, and this is the worst of them all. I had Neil DeMoss on my Thunder Arena Swindle Part 2 show. He's been doing this for 30 years, and he's like, this is the worst deal I've ever seen. We want to put Oklahoma City on the map and have people look at us. People are laughing at us. People in the know that are a part of these circles are like, it's a joke. It's barely even laughable. They say that we're paying 95. It's probably going to be more like 97 with the cost overruns. So
Yeah, well, and on top of that, when you look at, I stumbled on an old article from when Clay Bennett was stealing the Seattle Supersonics to bring them here, and his demand to them, I believe, was that he wanted them to pay around 60% of the remodel of the stadium in Seattle, and he and the team were gonna pay 40%. Now, that's even a little lower than the usual average. Usually it's from 2/3 to a half is what the team contributes. So they help pay for the fact that they're gonna make a fortune off of that. To Seattle, he said, I'll pay 40%, you pay 60. He comes home to Oklahoma City, his own hometown, his own city that he should actually care about and give a fuck about.
Yeah.
And he says, I'll give you 5% and you come up with the other 95%. And that's it, that's our deal. That's what our mayor negotiated out of this. So, for those of you who understand that at some point you have to just stand up and go, no, this is a bad deal for our city. We can tell you by any estimation, this is a horrible deal for our city. It's also, as I was looking up numbers to see how much had been spent by other municipalities, I saw one that was a municipality, I can't remember who it is. Let's see if I can find it. Basically, it turned out that this was the highest amount of money that any municipality will pay for an arena in history.
Wow.
Yeah. Milwaukee paid something like 700 million, and their total money that was funded into it was like 1.1 billion. But 400 million of that came from the state.
And consider that we're one of the smaller markets.
Yeah,
One of the smaller markets is going to pay the biggest price. And I mean, like,
yeah,
the cost of living here, you know, and what people make. I mean, it's just like proportionally, like, if, you know, the Lakers were to, it would be more like them paying $3 billion or $4 billion even, you know, because, yeah. So you talk about that 60% thing in Clay Bennett. I've been going through a lot of the old emails with Wanda Jo Stapleton, who was a huge part of the Match for Millionaires 15 years ago, Fannie Bates, a lot of the other people, and reading through our discussions. This is a side note, just how different things were back then, and like we were having these long form email conversations back and forth, and now everything's like, what up? Yeah, hey. It's like, but I found some stuff from the Sonics Gate people. There was a documentary called Sonics Gate about the story of all that, and in their documentary they had an email from Freedom of Information Request where Clay Bennett, in his back and forth with Aubrey and the other guys, said, we're going to get everything we can from these people, talking about the taxpayers of Oklahoma City, talking about just in an unbelievably belittling fashion, treating us as, you know, basically an ATM, and just looking down. He really does look down upon us. I mean, he's a bad dude. Like,
yeah.
I had my lawyer Jay on my show recently, and he's a wonderful dude. His biggest downfall, he's such a good dude that he thinks everyone else is good like him.
Yeah.
And he was talking about, you know, they're oligarchs, but they're benevolent oligarchs. I just like, wait a minute, let me tell you some stories about Clay. We're right down the street. This is a little side story. We got a lot of time. My friend Matt Herzog, I don't know if you know Matt, him and his buddy were at Flips for a bachelor party about 16, 17 years ago, sitting up at the bar, and in walks Clay Bennett and his friend. And they're a little buzzed. They walk up to the bar, and either his friend or Clay says, you're in our seat. And things kind of escalate, and Bennett's friend smashes Matt's friend's face, like breaks his cheekbone.
Wow.
So a female officer comes, walks up to Clay. Clay says, do you know who I am? And then the officer, she's a black woman officer, very strong, and she's like, puts her hand on her gun, says, you're about to find out who I am. And so,
Nice.
so here's what happens. Clay didn't know that Matt's father was Gaylord's lawyer. And that's where Bennett gets all his money from.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Clay Bennett is married into the Gaylord family. So if you think hard work makes you a millionaire, no, marriage.
He's a millionaire,
and
H-E-I-R.
Yeah, yeah.
So Clay had to call, and I'm trying to get Matt to come on and tell the story because it's a good one. And it's important. So Clay calls him. He says that he's basically crying and apologizing to me. I'm so because his father-in-law made him call and apologize for, you know, getting his buddy to assault his friend and start this thing. And that's who Clay Bennett is. I mean, he's a guy who sends emails to his friends talking about how he's going to get everything he can out of us working people who didn't marry into a wealthy family, who gets in bar fights. He actually, a friend of mine who worked there, had a brand new $400 pen, and he gave it to Clay, and he took it.
Oh my God. True to form. True to form.
I have so many stories, man. I can't wait to write my book. It's, you know, like little tidbits like that, and it's.
So let's kind of just go down. Let's kind of go down the list of how they're hyping this. So first of all, they're hyping it like it keeps the Thunder here until at least 1950.
2050, yeah, and there's that's
2050.
it's
Sorry, I lost my back in time.
It's non-binding, totally just a statement. Like we pinky swear that the team will stay here. It's meaningless.
Yeah, it's a letter of intent, which is not legally binding in any way. The only way you can do a letter of intent and even have a shred of a chance of making it stand up in a court of law is if you write on there, until such time that an actual contract, is consummated, this is a legally binding document.
And apparently that's what Milwaukee did with their deal.
Oh, we didn't do that here. All we have is, a napkin letter written to David Holt from Clay Bennett that says, yeah, we intend to probably keep him here. Now keep in mind, Clay Bennett also got fined by the NBA when he was trying to steal the Sonics from Seattle, because he had emails saying, when we move the team to Oklahoma City, but you can't do that. You can't go ahead and talk about how you're going to steal a team until the NBA approves it. Now, ironically, he's now talking about moving the team if we don't pass this, but is that even legal?
Bennett's not. Bennett hasn't said, none of the ownership group has said anything about it. The only person to say it is His Distinguished Majesty Holt and maybe some of the buffoonish goons in the chamber. None of the ownership has said it. But I'll tell you something interesting, and this comes from, I won't say his name, but he's a part of Todd Stone's Whiskey Friday group that all the insiders go to. And he told me this about 3 months ago, that he has had conversations with Bennett saying that when they get the arena, he's going to sell his share. So they bought the team for $300 million. It's worth 1.8. It's going to be worth $3 billion. Bennett and the other owners are getting old. They much rather their heirs have the money than the team. And I believe that, because the person that told me this, is a pretty reputable person.
Well, and that actually brings another point up, and that's that even if they don't move the team, he can sell his shares. Somebody else can buy the shares. He can make like 8 times his investment,
and we
on
get
his
nothing.
return.
Well, we get less than nothing. We get the
bill.
Well, we get the bill, and we get to pay extremely more rents and things like that as a result of the growth that has come from this. We talk a lot about the growth and all the things that have come. I mean, like my 27th and Walker apartment when I lived there in 2007 was $450. It's like $1,600 now, and so that's
triple is about right.
And we don't talk about those added costs that we burden us as a result of this. So it's not just we pay for it and don't get any equity. The cost of goods and services around this area are elevated, and actually, like, a lot of us have been pushed out of our old stomping grounds. When I ran against Cornette, one of the big things was they ran a story on Channel 9 of me smoking a hookah in the Paseo at what's it called now? The other room. It was called ISIS back then. But it wasn't so much about me smoking a hookah. It was about that I'm a weirdo and I'm hanging out here in the Paseo, and that's a place where we're misfits, and this guy's gonna be mayor, but And now this is where they all want to be. They, you know, and then I had my watch party at McNally's, and the talk on OKC talk. Oh, he's going to Midtown. Blah blah blah. Now all these assholes want their ashes scattered there when they die. You know, and so they belittled us for the way that we live, the way that we, you know, and now they all want to be just like us in Disney-fied fashion.
Yeah.
And they've kicked us out of our old neighborhoods.
Yep.
And we can't complain about it because worse has happened to other people. But you know, I feel everyone's pain in this.
That's real, you know, so there's that point. You know, the idea that they're gonna take the team away. If they wanna take the team away, they can take the team away. We don't have a contract. So when he tells you they've committed to being here past 2050, he's lying to you. This is Clay Bennett. If you trust Clay Bennett, who actually broke the last 2 years of the lease with the arena in Seattle to bring them here early.
And part of the money that we were given went to Seattle to break the agreement.
To help break
Yeah,
the lease.
I think it was 30 million or so.
Yeah, so point being, we didn't sign a contract, we have nothing in writing that legally guarantees that they'll stay here. If we give them a $1 billion check tomorrow, they can leave the next day if they want. And that's the facts. Don't let the propaganda fool you on this. The next one would be, let's see, they bring in, I think their number is $500 million.
So it's a firm from Arizona, and when you Google the address of the firm, it pops up like a barber shop or something like that. They probably have like a box there in the place. I looked at the study, and it's crap. You know, it's like $590 million or $10. What's funny is that if you look at the Oklahoman in 2018, there's an article that straight up says the Thunder generate $70 million a year. And so what? In 5 years, it's gone up 10 times. It's like,
yeah, and the reality of it is, there's actually a great little short video on YouTube if you type in Robert Reich and arenas, or maybe it's stadiums, but either way, same thing. And he does this great video about how we get swindled, how municipalities are swindled by arenas, and how the reality is this: when you say, let's say $500 million was spent on the OKC Thunder. I have no idea where they pull that number out of their ass, but let's pretend like that's how much money has gone into us as consumers spending money at the OKC Thunder, and maybe the restaurants in the neighborhood and the parking garages. Let's say that's where they got that number. The reality is this: any reputable economist and any reputable study will tell you that the only money you can count as new money generated by an endeavor is if they bring in people from out of town who weren't going to be here anyway, and they spend money on the OKC Thunder and other business. In other words, the Thunder actually brings them to Oklahoma City. The reality of it is, all of the money that the OKC Thunder takes, and I'm not anti-Thunder, frankly, I don't really care about them. They don't add to my quality of life or the quality of life of the homeless people I advocate, or the 42% of the people who in Oklahoma City can't afford to pay their bills. 42%, that's where we're at. 100,000 people living in poverty and thousands are homeless. We will not have any money to help them. But the main point being in that is that they are not bringing that money into the city. They're taking it out of local businesses. If the Thunder were to leave tomorrow, somebody still has $100 or $200 in their pocket that they want to spend this weekend. It will go into Vito's or Sean Cummings Irish Pub, or some of the great local Mexican restaurants, or local musicians. I went and saw Aranda the other night. You get to see bands like that. So when you put money into a mega billionaire corporations, and make no mistake, this is owned by billionaires, George Kaiser being one of the other ones, now that there's no Aubrey McClendon. But if you take that money and you move it into a billion-dollar corporation like this, you're moving it out of the pockets of small business owners. We're taking that $1,200 to $1,400, or probably 2,000 maybe by the time we're done. And we're gonna pay that in taxes per person. So a family of four can pay $5,000 to $6,000 out of your pocket. That's money you would have spent in the local economy. So that $1 billion would be better spent as money going into the local economy. That's where we would spend it. We would spend it on our bills, we would spend it on food, we would spend it on restaurants, we would spend it on the things that we actually need, and as we said, a community that now can't even afford the price of rent anymore.
There
So-
was a really good study in 1995 during the baseball strike. DeMoss talks about it quite a bit at fieldofschemes.com. You can read about it, where like they did an extensive study of municipalities during the baseball strike, and like not only were the communities not affected, like a lot of local businesses and bars were like ecstatic about, you know, because it brought in a lot more money because people weren't spending their monies at the game. They had extra money to come spend in their businesses.
Yep.
And also, I mean, like, what about 2020 when COVID, when there was no one going to Thunder games? Were we all,
Yeah.
like, out in the streets, you know, begging with tin can for nickels and stuff?
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
I don't remember any real effect from that.
Yeah, and that's really a true thing. And another thing that just came out recently, the Seattle Arena, I can't remember the name of it, whatever corporation
Yeah.
their arena is named after, for the first time turned a profit. So while their basketball team was there, they could never turn a
Yeah.
profit because their deal was so bad that on the nights of the NBA games, they lost money.
Okay.
So now that they don't have the NBA
Yeah.
games, they did enough concerts, and the concerts were booming in the last year or
Wow.
two, that they actually went from losing a couple of million a year to making a couple of million this year.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the arenas and we talk about, well, that's how we, you know, the other excuses, we'll bring in better concerts. Now I started to change my shirt. This is from the Who. Saw them at Paycom, one of the top grossing tours of the
Mhm.
year. When I saw them, did pretty well. Bring them in. The Paycom is actually bragging, and on their website, David Holt is bragging about it too, how great Paycom is. Less than a year ago, they were named one of the top 50 stadiums in the world.
And I'll tell you something about that. Russell Pace, I don't know if you know that he put that up on his Facebook, that story, and Holt contacted him and told him to take it down. Say, don't use your position on the maps board to speak against the arena.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's one of several that there was a
But he just posted something talking about how great our city is and how great Paycom is. How is that?
so and Joe Beth told the story of a well-known sports reporter that early on put up something about it being the worst arena deal ever, and Holt, you know, sent him an angry message saying, I need you to take that down, please. So he's like, not only do they have like 97% playing field tilt with the $7 million of hotel motel tax that the chamber gets for the propaganda campaign,
Yep.
they also have His August Majesty Holt telling people to, you know, hey, take that down. You know, and he doesn't say or else, but he means or else because he is a sinister mother Fletcher. Let me tell you, he's a nasty dude.
He is. It's finally, the veneer is finally wearing off on Holt, I think. And it's because they're tugging his puppet string so hard
Yeah.
and forcing him to go, I love maps and I love Paycom and it's the best place ever. No, that was yesterday.
Yeah.
Now it sucks. It's obsolete. We've got to tear it down. We've got to build a new arena. And here's why. And the reasons are lame. You know, oh, we'll get better concerts. Okay. He and Paycom, less than a year ago, were bragging that we had 13 out of the 30 top grossing concerts came to Paycom last year.
You know, a lot of
2022.
people are talking about,
Including Elton John, which was the 4th top grossing concert in the entire nation. So who are we going to get any bigger than that? Why is that an issue when we are bringing in 1/3 of the top grossing concerts came to Paycom Center last year? So to put it bluntly, fuck you, that's a lie. We are bringing in good concerts. We don't need a new arena to bring in bigger concerts at the cost of $1 billion in taxpayer money.
And they'll vomit up the phrase, we need to keep the momentum going, you know, the momentum. It's always these little phrases, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas we have to spend 10 minutes on each issue, they can just say, the momentum, we need to keep going. And all the glorps say, we don't want Oklahoma City to go back like it was. Dude, we were having a great time before this crap. It's like those of us who are willing to go out and find our own little scene and niches, we were having a great time.
Yeah.
And they were just too afraid to come down here and hang out. They said, oh, that's weird. There's muggers and all that.
We're going to have to gentrify that
Yeah.
before we go down there.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible just watching them overtake everything. But I was going to say that the thing with Josh Giddey, I'm not focused on that at all because I think it's, you know, whatever it is, I don't think it's relevant other than the fact that the culture that the Thunder have brought here, it's a sick culture. I mean, I have a friend who was a coach for the Thunder for a couple years, Bradley Burgess, and he's at Virginia Commonwealth now. And we were talking the other day. I don't want to, you know, get him in trouble or anything. He's totally neutral in all this and a wonderful guy. But we were talking about just how wonderful it is for him. You know, he's up there with his family on the university campus. We had gone back and forth on that and just how much better it is for him and his family. And I went to an OSU basketball game 2 weeks ago, and just the difference, you know, it's just people are together and talking, and they don't rush in and rush out. You know, there's stuff there to do on campus, and there's intellectual pursuits and people talking about things that matter rather than the meaningless conversations that happen surrounding the Thunder. It's just a culture that has really slowly started to eviscerate the ethos of the city. And, you know, we talk about all the great concerts and blah, blah, blah. I don't know, man. I mean,
I can afford one of those about every 3 years.
there's an amazing book by Cory Doctorow and Becca Giblin, I think her name, called Choke Point Capitalism, that talks a lot about these bands and these corporations and these and why it's so expensive, because there's so many people taking from it. And this culture that has been created in the last 15 years of mass consolidation of media and entertainment. And we're getting, you know, with all this corporate diversity crap, is not about what do we all bring to the table as different people. It's 100% about creating one giant homogenous consumer culture. Yeah. You know, that's why like Drake, The Weeknd, Britney Spears, NSYNC all have songs written by Max Martin. It's all the same shit. It's owned by the same people, and it promotes a culture that is just tearing away at the soul of the city. And we have seen in the past few years with Holt and the people that have sprouted up, you know, like Joe Beth's son Marty and some other nameless people who have really just torn apart and fragmented everything. And I fault just the culture in general that has been brought about by this franchise and the people it benefits. And, you know, one more thing, you know, I was working at the National for a couple months before my fateful September 26th City Council presentation. 39 people spoke. Gary Brooks, the developer and founder of the National, spoke, and His Ineffable Highness Holt specifically had me speak right after him to make me look bad, because I was concierge there. So Gary goes, and I have a lot of respect for Gary. He's a good dude. Speaks, you know, vomits up the chamber lines, and then I go up and say my thing. 2 days later, they have me in the office of the National. Steve, you're a great employee, but we got to let you go because of your political activism. And my point was not just that, but the things that I saw at the National, which is 200 residents, 150 hotels, it's just gross, man. It's like Great Gatsby on psilocybin, like a bad trip of psilocybin. Everyone's coming in there, they're all dressed up. You can tell they're kind of anxious and insecure, and they're doing their Instagram, Snapchat. It's just a gross culture. It's like what I saw in Austin at, you know, as the tech culture was descending upon, tearing that place apart.
Yeah, and I don't want to get off track on this other topic, but as you said that, I actually visualized Penn Square Bank and the drinking champagne out of the cowboy boots era, where everybody was just like like just taking money, and
Yeah.
and it
Funny money.
Yeah,
It's all
yeah.
funny money.
And it comes down to how much is enough, and the answer is it's never
Never,
enough.
never.
It's, if you're Clay Bennett, it's never enough. If you're George Kaiser, I don't care. He puts more money into Democratic politics. Well, good, because now the Democrats and the Republican billionaires can get together and have everybody support them while they pick our pockets.
Not a single Oklahoma Democrat House or Senate rep has said anything about this. I talked to Joe Dorman the other night, and he's like, "Well, you know, I'm kind of on the fence." I was like, I just like, I didn't want to say "fuck you," but I did. I mean,
Yeah.
and they just don't want to, like David Glover always says, they just don't want to lose their deal. You know?
Yeah, yeah, and something that's happened, I've seen a lot of the nonprofits come out in support of this.
Oh, of course.
And I'll answer the question, why would they be doing this? Why would the nonprofits come out in support of taking money that could be much better spent? And this has been my mantra for years, and now I have a target to aim it at. This $1 billion jail, or, oops, sorry, we did the jail 2 years ago. The $1 billion arena pushed by the Chamber of Commerce, the same people who did the jail, the same people who spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to shove that down our throat are now shoving this down our throat. Now those nonprofits should be saying, man, for $100 million we can build a tiny home for every single homeless person in Oklahoma City and end homelessness. End it. For $200 million, we can build enough mental health facilities and drug and alcohol addiction facilities, and we can lift people who are on the low end of poverty who are about to fall off the cliff as well. So I still wouldn't support it if Clay Bennett had said, I'll chip in $500 million, you chip in $500 million. But if they had pitched this as, I guess, map 6, whatever they want to call it, you know, maps 5, I guess we're on 4 now, maps 5, and said half of this money's going to go to eradicate homelessness and to eradicate mental health issues and to eradicate as best we can drug and alcohol addiction and to attack poverty in Oklahoma City, instead of doing what they're doing on 39th and Penn right now, which is putting up those little concrete barriers and filling the underpass at the bridge with giant rocks.
Oh, man.
So that homeless people can't get under the bridge when it's freezing outside, when it's raining outside, when it's cold and wet, and when they're hungry. They can't even go and get dry from the weather. So instead of helping our homeless community, we're building barriers. We're spending a lot of city money. They had heavy equipment out there hauling shit in. And instead of spending money on that, we're spending money to oppress the homeless and harass them and to increase the jail population. Another Clay Bennett, you know, brought to you by Clay Bennett scheme and a scam. So
Let me pitch another book real quick.
Yeah.
First we had Choke Point Capitalism. Please check it out. Another one is a book that I've been talking about for like 18 years. By the group was called Insight Women of Color Against Violence, and they had a book called The Revolution Will Not Be Funded Inside the Not-for-Profit Industrial Complex. And it's a phenomenal book and this was 18 years ago, and
Wow.
things have gotten so much worse since then. But I think you can get it in PDF form for free online.
Okay.
And, you know, it's just such a incredible thing to think about that topic. You know, when on the 26th, there was a woman from the United Way that spoke. You were there, right? Okay. And do you remember she came up there and said something to the tune of the not-for-profit, or not, the nonprofit, I was going to say not-for-profit industrial complex, but the nonprofits are thriving in Oklahoma City, which was just like, are you kidding me? Can you give a little disclaimer with that? What that means?
What it means is we don't reduce poverty, we don't reduce homelessness. Now, and ironically, in the last few weeks, suddenly they're coming out with these proposals. One of them, they're spending, I think, around $12 million. No, I take it back, $1.2 million, if I have it right.
Mm-hmm.
Saying that they're going to get all of our nonprofits to work together, and with that 1.2 million, they're gonna end homelessness, which is lunch money
Yeah.
for Holt and Clay Bennett and their buddies. That's chump change. That's just nothing. So every time here's how it goes. We get $1 billion, you get $1 million. We get $1 billion, you get $1 million. That's how it goes every fucking single time. And I think Oklahoma City needs to stop and decide over the next 12 years, who do you think needs help the most? Is it the billionaires who can build their own arena, who can fund their own basketball team, who, as you said, the value is quadrupled or 5 times, I guess, in value.
Six, and
Six
it will go
times.
up 10 times if they get their arena.
Yeah,
Because they're estimating, and there's this new deal from ESPN coming that's going to increase the value by several hundred million. So not
Yeah.
only the arena, but also the new deal. Another thing about that not-for-profit deal on the 26th, the day after that, Holt's wife got a $300,000 CEO gig with United Way, which I thought was unbelievable.
Oh, wow.
Here you have David Holt creating the need for charity, and then here you have his wife, benefiting off of it. And Oscar Wilde has some great writing many years ago in The Soul of Man Under Socialism about how degrading charity is because you give people a little bit of money, but you keep them in the situation that created the need for that in the first place.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more insulting than these people who are literally creating the need for all this charity and then coming along and say, well, we have a plan for that.
Yeah.
It's what you call moderately repairing with your left what you destroy with your right. And,
Yeah,
that's-
exactly. Yeah, and so throw into that, let's see, Suan Arnall, I guess it just came out literally days ago, so we do this on purpose. Understand that we have been screaming, begging, yelling, suggesting any way we can approach them almost every week for the last 3.5 years, and really I've been doing work with homeless people for 10 years, and so have some of the people I've worked with, because we know homelessness, mental health, drug and alcohol addiction, poverty, and incarceration are just a big circle. We all know that. We know that if we can fix those issues, incarceration goes down, and then another one of our taxpayer investments, a new jail, can be built half the size. That's what we said all along. We never said we don't need a new jail. We said, let's do the things to help people first instead of piling up boulders. Drive by 39th, Northwest 39th in Pennsylvania. If you're not outraged by the fact that we're now building rock piles and barriers to keep people who are homeless from finding shelter under a bridge while they hype a new arena to us, if that doesn't piss you off, then go vote yes. That's all I can say about that. But
I didn't know about that. I used to drive by there every day.
It's insane. It is just fucking absolutely insane. So understand that. Oh, and here's another thing. Well, we need a bigger arena because the Thunder has outgrown their arena. Look up NBA attendance 2022, and you'll find it'll take you to the actual NBA website. So I'm pretty sure this is a accurate source. It will show you that the NBA had a record year, the highest attendance ever last year. The OKC Thunder, on the other hand, was dead last in attendance. Dead last in the league in attendance last year.
Well, the new arena is not going to have more seats. It's just going to have more upscale
Fancy
seating,
seats.
more boxes.
Billionaire seats.
And I will offer the disclaimer that the attendance can be better because they're kind of on a trajectory getting better and better, which is, we have to say everything that's actually happening or we're in big trouble, whereas they get to, say whatever they want.
Get to make
And that's another thing. The team is, I love the way they're developing as a team. I'm a big statistical, analytical guy. I help build some algorithm fantasy programs, and my best escape is getting into sports numbers. But I just can't watch the Thunder anymore. I mean, it's just too triggering, And honestly, but I do like the way the team is directed. Sam Presti, I actually got to bitch out Sam Presti at work. I worked for a charter flight company, and him and the Thunder executives were flying to March Madness using a Chicago charter company, spending $20,000 more on the flight. I told the owner of the company, Happy Wells, that what happened. You know, he's a wonderful dude. And he's like, yeah, next time you see him, I want you to talk to him about that. And I was like, oh,
Okay then.
so they were back the next week, and I'm like, and Presty's terrified of flying, so I knew I had some, you know. So I get up and I'm like, we gave you all this money. You promised that you were going to help local business. You're spending probably $18,000 more on this flight. And he's like, yeah, I'm sorry. You know, and he's like, and I think that maybe they've started flying with them a little bit. But I have seen a lot of that. You know, I've seen Russell Perry get crapped on regarding the broadcast rights. You know, I spoke at council many times saying, okay, the team's coming. Let's make sure that we get someone like Russell Perry to broadcast rights. And they ended up giving the broadcast rights to a Nevada company, Citadel, because they're basically going bankrupt and they can just offer a sweetheart deal. They gave the owners all the ad revenue during the game. That's why you hear Mid-First, Chesapeake, Devon during the game, because they take their money and then get it back. And so Nevada company got the radio, and then I think Atlanta company got the TV broadcast rights. Money that's a whole nother thing. The money that is flowing out of Oklahoma City as a result of this.
Yeah.
Mickey Dolenz quoted.
And the key word flowing out of
Out.
Oklahoma City.
Yeah, you know,
and
and
the big corporations not based here.
Holt tweeted last night about Channel 5 is on board. Well, of course, Channel 5 is owned by a New York company. What are they going to do? You know, like Hearst is New York. I mean, a sane person would do something about that. Like, all their news stories come from the police wire. Let's write a municipal code that says if you're going to get news from the police wire, you got to pay $10,000 a story, you know, or something like that.
Yeah.
But and 70% of rentals at least are owned by New York, California, Florida, and it's insane. Holt doesn't care because it's all about, you know, the tax that's generated from this. You know, he doesn't care if it's local or not. He actually likes it more when the money flows out because they charge more and more taxes are generated.
Yeah.
It's called tax harvesting.
So I hope you all are kind of getting the point here. So this will kill maps for the next 12 years. There will be no Maps 5 for at least 12 years from now. No, we do not need a bigger arena. Not only were they last in attendance last year, they were around between 2,000 and 3,000 average. I think around 3,000 to even fill the existing arena. So they don't need a bigger arena. And as you said, all they're getting are bigger
It's not going to be
box
bigger.
suites. We're getting a bigger billionaire section in the arena,
Yeah.
not a bigger arena. So we get the same shitty seats that we've always had. They get fancier digs and private bars and food and all that, while we're down there paying $10 for a drink and $12 for a hot dog or whatever it might be. So that's not it. The other thing is, this is again from David Holt. Well, it's getting old. It's getting, you know, it's a little long in the tooth for an arena. I had someone come on my page one day and say, it's the oldest arena in the entire NBA. And I went, okay, as usual, I'm old enough to really appreciate Google, because we used to have to go to the library to look up shit. Google it, and it is in the top 40% in age. So 60% of the arenas are older than Oklahoma City.
I mean, it's the oldest on Sheridan or whatever street it's
Oh, yeah, exactly. Well, and I said, well, where did you get that from? Because this is what I got. And he said, oh, wow, I heard somebody on Sports Talk Radio say it. So an announcer on Sports Talk Radio, hyping for the new arena, straight up lied and said, we have the oldest arena in the NBA. But we don't. We have 60% of the arenas are older. They haven't proven that they can even fill up the existing arena. We are getting the worst deal. We'll pay more money as a municipality than anybody in history on an arena. And as you said, a small market, so per person, that's even higher.
That's
We're
what we
paying
need
an insane amount of money.
We need to do per capita, not the total amount.
Yeah, and that was the total amount.
Yeah.
This is gonna be the highest amount of dollar funding from a single municipality for arena in history. And us paying 95% is
If we're lucky, it's probably not.
if we're lucky, you'd probably end up at 98 or 99, because this is not gonna get built for $1 billion, and we know that. We don't build anything for $1 billion anymore. Yeah, when he was offering Seattle to pay 40% to Seattle, and then comes home to Oklahoma, and I said, why would he rip off his own city? And everybody, on my page raised their hand and went, because Clay Bennett owns us.
Yeah.
He owns Holt. He doesn't own the mayor of Seattle like he owns.
Tell you who he really owns is James Cooper.
Yeah, James Cooper voted for it, and I'm sorry, James, I hope this doesn't make you cry, but, because I did make him cry one time for saying that I needed them to speak up about having the deadliest gel in America. Still a thing, still needs to be talked about.
I don't know if you saw my League of Women Voters deal with him. He came out of it. Okay, I am not. He got like gayer as he was speaking because people feel sorry for him or whatever. He said, I am not here to debate Steve. I am not here to. And I just want to say, dude, like Howard Zinn, you can't be neutral on a moving train, and this is a moving train. You're on one side or the other,
Yeah.
and he like Susan McCann said, he maybe subconsciously, but I think a little more than that, wants to appear as the progressive savior of the bad deal. He's just dying for it to pass and then come on with his crappy non-binding agreement that is really a nothing burger. It's just,
Oh yeah, that was the thing, that they will hire people and pay them a living wage. Now, I don't think they wrote anything in there that they would hire the homeless people and pay them a living wage. I don't think that's in there. But again, it's not a contract. It's just like the letter of intent that we wrote with Clay Bennett on them staying past 2050.
and it doesn't say that, like, when we have contractors, the way they get out of these things is they hire contractors.
Yeah.
Because the 12 and 15 is if you're employed directly. Instead, like Amazon, we're going to pay 15, but everyone's a contractor there, so it doesn't apply to them.
Oh.
And it's just meaningless, except it's meaningful for them because they can say, look at all we're doing for the community.
Yeah. And frankly, I'm going to say this about the unions. I believe the unions are what made America great.
Yeah.
Minus the FOP. But that's another topic for another day. But as the people who are representing some of the unions locally, we can't be myopic. And I believe that it is the responsibility of the unions not to advocate just for union workers, but to also advocate for the homeless population, for the people who can't find a job, for the 42% who can't pay their bills every month in Oklahoma City, 42%. And you're taking money out of their pockets. So when you're talking about making a deal for the union, you're saying, we're giving you all $1 billion, Clay Bennett and George Kaiser and your other rich billionaire buddies. We're giving you $1 billion. But out of that billion, can you give back a few million of that and pay a decent wage to some of our peon workers who are, by the way, paying their own money out of their pocket to fund your $1 billion arena? Can we give us back, we're gonna give you 20 boxes of pizzas, and can you give us one slice that we can chop up between the workers? Because that's what's going on here. This is our money. This is what I want people to remember. This is our money. And if we say no, they might leave or they might not. If we say yes, they might leave and they might not. If we say no, we have $1 billion that we can do 2 more MAPS projects, and we can do all the things we've talked about. We can end homelessness. We can make our parks world class. We can put it into education and lift up people in poverty. We can go over to East Side for a change and spend money. And I realize there's a couple of neighborhoods that are starting to spend money on the East Side, but that's only because they're coming for you and they're gentrifying those neighborhoods. But the reality of it is, lift up Southwest Side, lift up the areas that need some help, lift up the people who, if you take that $1 billion and spread it out across 5,000 businesses or people who want to start businesses, that money will permeate our economy faster and quicker and lift up our citizens more than this $1 billion ever will. Because as it turns out, there is no $500 million economic boom. That's a con and rigged survey that they put together from a fake economist.
In Arizona. I mean, why not get someone from OU or UCO or...
The guy from UCO actually was quoted in the paper as saying that it has been proven that arenas add little or nothing to the local economy. So that guy was out. He wasn't going to be the one to do their study for him.
I want to do another plug. We're talking about, more important things and all that. If you want to get really invigorated about the possibilities of money like this going to... Go to Belle Isle Library. You see this button? I've been making these buttons in the makerspace, which is just a wonderful place. You go in there, you can make buttons. They got 3D printers. They got sewing machines. They got little wood burning. Every time I go in there, I meet some awesome person that's doing something creative. And it's just like, the money that it cost to do that was nothing compared, but it's wonderful. It's a wonderful, creative, meaningful space that some of our taxpayer money went to. And we can have 100 times that.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's MAPS money, directly paid for that. MAPS money paid to redo the Belle Isle Library.
And how meaningful it was to be able to make this with tax money while the chamber's getting $7 million. I can do a little bit like they're doing,
Yeah, while they're spending, by the way, your taxpayer dollars from the hotel and motel, which could go into our economy. They're spending it instead. We give it to them. They use it to force us to build a bigger jail instead of reducing incarceration. They use it to give us these horrible brochures that I keep getting like 2 a week on.
$32,000 for 8 ads during Wheel of Fortune. $32,000. If I had $32,000, there's no way they would win. What I could do with that.
So this is where we're at. You have a chance this coming Tuesday to go in and tell them, no, we are not going to fund billionaires. We are not going to give all of our money to billionaires. We're not going to take money that would be better spent building things like you talked about there.
Makerspace.
I have been pushing for years. I took James Cooper to an event, a program at Northwest Optimist.
Okay.
It's a city run by the Parks Recreation Department. Toby Tobin is the woman's name who runs it. Her daughter, by the way, is Audra May, who's a very well-known songwriter and just recently won an Academy Award for a song that she wrote. Phenomenal songwriter. Martina McBride and other people like that have been doing her songs. So she's a local girl. So Toby started this program. It's an after-school and an all summer long, 40 hours a week drama camp. And they do drama and music. And they charged, it used to be $40 a week, might be $60 now. So kids who normally would be bored at home watching TV, wandering the streets, getting into trouble, Lord knows what, got this phenomenal education. And my daughter went there during her entire childhood. She eventually outgrew it. They made her an instructor there. She then became an instructor at Everything Goes Dance Studio, where she was taking dance. She's now the owner of that studio. That's the progression of, if we start summer programs, and we've been pushing this. I took James there, and he teared up and cried when he watched the program, and he met the kids afterwards, and he talked to Toby, and he said, this is what Oklahoma City needs. And I said, I want an after-school program in every quadrant, on east side, on south side, on southeast side, southwest side, everywhere, so that every kid in the summer has something to do. It can be music in one of the programs. It can be art in another one. It can be drama in another one. We can fund those. The key to that was that eventually the program she started now turns a profit for the Parks and Recreation Department. So if you see those programs they pay for themselves.
Whereas the Thunder is like $6 million in debt from operation costs for this. You know, we pay $6 million in taxes
Yeah.
for the operation of the facility, and this thing's making money.
Yeah, yeah, with a bunch of kids who
Yeah.
are paying their way in it.
I had some guys, vomiting up chamber stuff, saying, "Well, the city owns it, and they make big profits." No, they don't. There's $6 million in the red on operations.
And that goes back to why the Seattle arena is suddenly turning
Yeah.
a profit. Someone came on my page the other day and they were, and they made some very good points, and they said, here's why I think we need a new arena. They work there. They said, load-in's bad, there's some logistics there. Now supposedly we're gonna put a bunch of Maps 4 money into fixing those things, but we didn't. But then he said, we usually only make about $100 a night each when the Thunder plays. We make $300 to $400 when there's a concert.
Wow.
So while he's saying we need a bigger arena, he also let it slip that the OKC Thunder is where we're losing money and we're underpaying workers and we're not doing the right thing by our workers. And they make good money when concerts come into town, much like our streetcar down there.
Yeah.
By the way,
Transit.
I saw 3 people on a streetcar the other day. That's a first for
I
me.
literally went there one time because I needed some alone time and just rode around by myself, like meditated.
And the place was empty, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
that's another James Cooper thing.
Hey, one thing
he
about-
he helped fund that and push it through, and he'll tell you.
Yeah, he ran
but
against Ed because Ed was against it.
He said, "Well, I want to say it was $100,000 that was going to be set aside for expanding bus services or something." He argued and negotiated out some kind of a deal. I might be wrong on the details of that, but his pitch to me was, I wasn't a yes until they gave me what I wanted. Just like this one, I wasn't a yes until they gave me a piece of paper that said we may pay a living wage to some of our workers, which clearly we don't do now.
It's sad that they feel so threatened and all that. I've been talking crap about James, and I'm furious at him right now, but there's really no one that's been better on senior issues. I work at two senior living facilities right now, and he's really good on that. He's one that when Fountains at Canterbury was shut down by Well Tower Capital, good friend of Hall Capital, and a bunch of people died the first week they were kicked out. He was one that would really listen about that. I got a Freedom of Information request to Holt and Nikki Nice, didn't even look at it. But James has been good at that,
I'm going to say that I like James. I don't like him caving in.
Scared.
I need people to take a stand. I need people to take a stand. As a city council person, if the jail's in your county, take a fucking stand and tell people that we need to reduce it. As they're trying to do stuff to reduce the homeless, fight for the funding. Don't accept these smaller amounts and these breadcrumbs. You could have ended homelessness years ago when we were first talking about it, but they chose not to. We choose not to help our citizens. We choose to have 42% of the people not having enough money to pay their bills every month, because we would rather fund the Clay Bennett's of the world and the George Kaisers of the world and the people who have more money than they will ever know what to do with. Oh, by the way, I was going to say earlier, Suanne Arnall just came out. I don't know when this happened, but they saved it for going into the vote, because they know that I and other people have been saying, no, let's spend this to help the homeless population instead of building up boulders and barriers to keep them from going underneath the fucking bridge overpass. She spent, I want to say, a couple of $1 million to buy a 160 bed motel and have it remodeled. Now, to be fair, we gave her $12 million in Maps 4 money, so we're giving them $12 million. They give us back $2.
Kind of like we gave the Thunder owners $75 million through the Quality Jobs Act.
Yeah, and they gave us back 0, basically, So, understand this, we love Maps. I don't like some of the graft that's in there, but right now, I long for the good old days when 2/3 of it was good and 1/3 of it was corporate giveaways. I long for those days, because this is nothing but a corporate giveaway. arena that's not too small for the team, apparently isn't gonna be any bigger when they build a new one. An arena that is not as old as 60% of the arenas in the country, NBA arenas. An arena that's in good shape, an arena that had 13 of the top 30 concerts, so when you say we get better concerts, no we don't. You don't get any better than Elton John as far as a high grossing concert. We're getting them here. And they were bragging about it, and Holt was bragging about it less than a year ago, and now he's saying, Paycom sucks, those people suck, Elton John sucks, I don't like any of those, we're not gonna do anything until we build a new arena. So understand that that's where we're at. We have thousands of people that are homeless. We have 100,000 people living in abject poverty, and apparently we have half our population who can't afford to pay their bills each month. So what do you want to do? Do you want to send them back to the drawing board and make them come back? They'll take another bite at it. They'll come back with a 50-50 deal.
And they need to be held accountable. Just think about the fact that some of the MAPS 4 money that was earmarked for Paycom is being shifted over to the new arena. Now, it's important to remember that when COVID started, a lot of us were screaming at the top of our lungs to change around some of the MAPS money to address this new world we were living in. We could buy home testing kits, masks, whatever. And Holt adamantly said, no, the MAPS programs are what the people voted on and they cannot be changed. Never mind.
Oh, and we had an oversight committee that makes sure every dollar goes where it was supposed to go.
Yeah, and so now he's moving the projects around. And he already moved up the 30 million, the AC unit for the practice facility was supposed to have been built years down the road, and they moved that up first of MAPS 4. So, and after
Which means the homeless people come last once again.
Right. After my
come last.
Supreme Court case, my lawyer represented Ed Shadid about the log rolling on MAPS, and they wouldn't rule on it because it says that there's no mandate for any of these projects, which means, yes, you can change the projects around. And then Holt said you can't when it was during COVID, and now that the new arena is here, we're going to move around. And so part of voting no is starting to get some accountability in these people. Because they can push us around. And that's why Bennett wanted 40% from Seattle and 97% from us.
Yep.
Because he knows that and he's right, people don't stand up here. People are traumatized here, and people just want to just get by. And everyone is scared. James Cooper is scared. Everyone is scared. J.R. Holmesy, one more little small story, when Holt was up for the dean of the OCU Law School, J.R.'s a good friend of mine. I went to his office and said, J.R., we have cigars together a lot. And I'm like, you know what I've said? He's like, in his kind of old man Lebanese, Steve, I know, I've been on the board at OCU for 30 years, I don't want to rock the boat. I'm like, well, you got a freaking baseball field's named after you.
Wow.
People just don't want to lose their deal, and people are, it's like, it's a very fragile, volatile city that we live in. And I mean, I lost my effing job over my presentation, so they're right in being scared. But standing up to this would be monumental in changing that.
It would, and to say, and this is disgusting, and it's a insult to taxpayers, and it's an insult to our businesses, and it's an insult to the developers, and even to our council people. And James and Joe Beth and Nikki had a good share of trying to squeeze some good projects in between, some of the bullshit in MAPS 4. And they did a good job of that. But now you're saying, oh, none of that mattered. The reason we're successful is a basketball team.
Yeah, like
Not the billions of dollars of MAPS money that we put into our city as an investment. And we as citizens, we were like, you know what, we'll suck it up. We'll suck it up because we want this city to thrive in the long run. And it's worked to a large degree. It's worked. The next step is obviously to do something about the homeless community, and again, not spend city money to pile boulders under an overpass to keep them from being warm, not spend have them doing their community service under Shine, which is owned by Brian Mon, and who has a monopoly on community service, quarter community service, and who is making them tear down the tent cities. So people doing community service work have to tear down the tent cities, and they also are in the jail remodeling the cells. And I've talked to people who spent time in that jail and are now having to work there, and they have told me it's triggering to walk into that jail every single day while they do community service and have to remodel and flash back to the horrific, medieval torture cells that they were in there. And for Oklahoma, if we were in perfect shape, we didn't have a problem. We're second in the nation in our police killing civilians. We have the deadliest jail in all of America. We have we're not a big league city, we're a tent city. We have a tent city of homeless people in our community. We have 40% of our people who can't pay their bills. So if all of those things are fixed, and we have a horrible mental health crisis, and a fentanyl crisis, and a drug and alcohol addiction crisis, and horrible things happening before our eyes. And I heard from somebody yesterday that something like 90% of the people in the Oklahoma City schools are at poverty level in the public schools.
I believe it.
Yeah, so we have needs. Our city has needs, and we have pressing needs. And our need is not a new arena for a team that can't fill the other arena that they have, who is making a massive profit, who has taken their investment and made it 6 times over what it was, how many years ago?
15.
Yeah. Made a massive amount of profit because we subsidized them. Without the arena, we still subsidized them.
And just think what was going on back then. That was during the housing crisis, and Oklahoma City had an opportunity to be a part of changing that culture. And instead of putting on the brakes, we slammed down the gas. And look at us now. Look at us now. Holt even talks about, the Trump thing. He's gotten a lot of cred for speaking out against Trump. Well, he's the one that created the need for Trump. He was just a response to all he's not a great guy or whatever, but that was just people voting for him was a response to this stuff.
Yeah.
Because people just don't know what to do, and they want anyone that's different.
Yeah. Tomorrow at what time does it start?
8:30.
8:30, and normally when do they do?
So citizen presentations are always the last thing on the list. Normally council runs till about 10:30 or 11. But recently they've been just going real fast through them because they want to get to the end and because they know people show up late. So if you want to speak tomorrow, I'd say get there no later than like 9:15, and you just, as you go in, there's some officers at the desk and they have little cards. You just write your name and then they take it and you get to speak.
And this is a city council meeting, so at least go, voice your concerns, tell people why you think it's a bad idea, tell people why you think that we have better priorities, that we are not prioritizing our tax dollars properly by doing this. Tell them that we don't want to build barriers and harass and arrest and kill, in some cases, our homeless community, that we want to actually help them, and that for 1/10 the cost of a new arena, we could end homelessness in Oklahoma City. And those are factual figures. Somebody built about 14 tiny homes on South Side. They cost about $60,000 each.
Sure.
So you can build 1,400, which they say is our homeless population. I think it's higher. You can build 1,400 of them for $1 million. They're less than $100 million. So for 1/10 of this arena cost, we can end homelessness. For 1/3 of it, we can take care of our mental health and drug and alcohol addiction programs and be moving in the right direction. And instead, we're throwing $1 million here and $1 million there and $10 million here, and it's just glossing over what's happening. It's not helping people out, and we've been out in the community. I can tell you, they need help. They need help, and so do the people who are on the edge. What they don't need is a family of 4 spending $6,000 to build an arena for a team that they can't afford tickets to, and to go see concerts that they can't afford tickets to. At least let's put this money on the backs of the billionaires and let them build their own damn arena, and that's kinda all I got to say about that. I'll be at the council meeting tomorrow.
I'll be there just as long as I can get up. I'm like, so like losing this job, I'm picking up shifts at Senior Living, working overnight. So hopefully I can get to bed tonight and sleep and wake up. I mean, they're good at suppressing dissent. You know,
Yeah.
losing my job has really effed up my life, and so hopefully I'll be able to wake up in the morning.
Yeah, and that's the city council meeting tomorrow, starts at 8:30?
8:30, starts at 8:30.
I should be there by 9.
You're fine if you get there at 9. You just
Okay,
have to be there before it ends.
And what's the building that it's in, municipal?
Yeah, City Hall right there on Walker, and I forget the intersection, but
Yeah, I think
right
it's-
across from the big city.
I wanna say it's 200 North Walker or
Yeah, that
something
sounds
like
right.
that. So City Hall, go in and speak your mind. If you have projects that you think need to be taken care of, if you're up in the fringes of Oklahoma City, you're not seeing hardly any MAPS money unless you happen to be in Guardian or something. That's a whole other story. But yeah, we have things that we could spend this on. No, we should not accept the worst deal in the history of municipalities paying for arenas. We should not accept the highest amount of money ever paid by a municipality for a new arena. We should not do that. And we should not continue to fund billionaires, many of who make their money because we give them tax breaks on oil drilling, and we've done that for decades. People like Savannah Arnall, who made their money in oil. We have to just quit doing that. We've made a good start with MAPS, and don't let David Holt kill MAPS. He tells you he loves it. At the same time, he is holding a gun to the head of MAPS right now. He wants to take it out, and he wants to replace it with a giveaway to billionaires, and it's up to us to stop that. Help spread the word. There's gonna be a low turnout on that election.
Yeah, they have it on December 12th to intentionally have a low turnout. He brought this up at Summer at the State of the City. He could have had it during the primary season, but he didn't want to because he knew it wouldn't pass.
Yeah, because when voters turn out, you get more voters who are regular workaday people like us, just trying to get by, day to day. But if you have a low turnout, you can push your own voters and target your own voters with taxpayer money, paid advertising, and get them out, and you can push through very unpopular agendas like this arena. So love you guys. Help spread the word out there. Let people know. Get out and vote. I'm telling you, this does not mean the OKC Thunder will leave.
They won't.
They won't. They just won't. This is an idle threat.
2 expansion teams coming, so they're not even going to allow anyone to leave in the near future.
No, they won't even do it, And they can come back later and say, we'll pay 50%, and the other 50% will actually go to help the community and help the people who need it the most, and not the people who need it the least. So.
And
love
I
you
could
guys.
talk for 3 more hours. Check out my show, Thunder Arena Swindle Part 2. Lots of good stuff there.